So this is called DCeased, and it's one of the most fun DC books I have ever read. In fact, this was my first ever hardcover purchase, and this book means a lot to me. But now we've actually got an omnibus edition out, and the question is, should you upgrade your hardcovers to this? This video is brought to you by Panelbound Comics. You may know them as organic priced books, but they're back with a new name, a new logo, but the same customer service and the same great packaging and shipping. So you can grab all your collected editions at panelboundcomics.com and use the code BJKicks to save $2 at checkout on every single order. Now, let's get back to the video. Welcome back to Comics Are Dope. I'm BJ Kicks, and this video is all about DCeased. It is, like I said in the intro, one of my favorite comic series to come out in the last 10 years or so. I started reading comics in 2019, and when I started reading comics, what had pulled me in was an event at Marvel called House of X and Powers of 10. It was kind of a rebooting of the X-Men after some years of kind of dormancy in the whole Marvel universe. And X-Men was kind of not hitting on much, but then they did House of X, Powers of 10 and brought things to life in a new way. So I was reading X-Men and I just started kind of picking up a lot of other favorites of mine. And my favorite character of all time is Batman. And so I was reading Batman off the shelves, and I honestly would have been content to just read Batman. But at the same time, what was going on, this was late 2019, I was deeply entrenched in the world of comic book YouTube and learning about collected editions and all these things. And so they had this event called Local Comic Shop Day. And when I saw they had a hardcover of this book called DCeased, I was like, okay, I'm down for that, because I had previously checked out issue 1 on one of those reprints. They had like a reprint of issue 1, I think for like Halloween trick or read or something like the year before. The point is, somehow I got a copy of DCeased #1. Maybe it was a Dollar Comics issue. And that got me hyped for the hardcover that was about to come out. And for Local Comic Shop Day, they did this. This is a Local Comic Shop Day exclusive variant hardcover. If you ever had the DCeased hardcover that you get on like Amazon or Barnes & Noble or whatever, it's got a picture of Batman in this like sort of zombified version by Francisco Mattina. And this one is the Joker. And I just thought this was a really cool cover and I really wanted this. So I went to the local comic shop and I purchased this hardcover for the price of $29.99. And I was like, that's the most money I've ever spent on one comic at one time. And I was like, okay, cool. This is an interesting experience. But I read this book and I was hooked. This book did so much to unlock the DC universe for me. And if you're not familiar, DCeased is a book where it's basically a zombie apocalypse set in the DC universe. They're technically not zombies. They say that in the book multiple times. But basically the anti-life equation gets unlocked. And what happens with the anti-life equation, right? I guess undead, anti-life are kind of similar. And so when this techno virus starts to spread, you can become a zombie from two ways. You can become a zombie by kind of getting bit by a zombie, or by having contact with any sort of screen, TV, internet, phones, whatever. And so this techno virus spreads through the DC universe at lightning speed. And of course, our heroes are there to try to protect us from it. And so this book is like, it's very high stakes because it's an Elseworlds title, this originally came out as a DC Elseworlds or Black Label story where it was like out of continuity, it's kind of darker and all that stuff, but it doesn't affect all the mainline DC universe stuff you know and love. So that means that people can die, people can go off world or whatever, and it doesn't affect anything. So the stakes are higher. And man, this book specifically, it's like introduced me to so many different DC characters that I might have seen on TV or in like, cartoons or something like that, or I hadn't seen at all. But I love their characterizations in this book so much that it made me want to read more DC. I should tell you, this is written by Tom Taylor, and this volume's got art by Trevor Hairsine. Well, the DCeased, this title did so well that they spun it out into multiple titles. And so first we had DCeased Unkillables, which runs concurrently with the main DC run or DCeased run, and kind of tells us what's been going on with some of the villains in the DC universe while this zombie equation is running rampant. And then at the same time, we had this digital first series that came out. I want to say this was like during COVID or right before COVID, but this was DCeased Hope at World's End. And this was like a bunch of digital chapters giving us little pictures, also running concurrently with the main 7-issue DCeased run, or was it 6 issues? But this is giving us little glimpses at different superheroes' lives during the first DCeased saga. So these three together to kind of open up the world of this zombie apocalypse in the DC universe, all taking place basically at the same time, and informing one another. But then later on, we got the sequel, and the sequel I was all in for. This is DCeased Dead Planet, which takes place, what is it, like 10 years after the original DCeased, where I don't want to spoil the ending of DCeased, but there's some things that happen, right? And so we basically have like a new Justice League that takes over in DC Dead Planet. And what I liked about Dead Planet is that we get, some different people involved. So the first DCeased was about like the sort of mainline Justice League type stuff. Dead Planet, we get a little bit more involvement from like the Justice League Dark portion of the universe. And then finally, the end of the trilogy is this. This is DCeased War of the Undead Gods. And of course, this borrows heavily from like the New Gods lore and Darkseid and Apocalypse and, New Genesis and all that stuff. And it's a great saga. Honestly, I recommend reading the DCeased franchise front to back. There's not a bad series in the bunch, in my opinion. But now, like I said, you could have collected it in hardcover, which would have given you these 5 very nice looking standard sized hardcovers. But you now have another option. You can pick up the DCeased Omnibus, and we're going to do a quick overview, and we'll talk about like whether or not I think the Omnibus is worth it. And so, you know what? Let me switch and let's do some top down while I talk. All right, so I hope you'll pardon the microphone in the shot, but I wanted to show you guys this DCeased Omnibus by Tom Taylor. That was a long intro, a lot of preamble there, but let's get to the main event. Now, before we get into it, I do want to give you a quick size comparison. So this is my original DCeased hardcover. This is the Omnibus. Of course, this is going to be a bit taller than the standard size hardcover, and also just a touch wider than the standard size hardcover. I've got a whole video about comic book formats, so you can tell the difference between an oversized and a standard sized hardcover. But let's take a look at this dust jacket art. I wonder who does this dust jacket art. I don't know who this is actually, but we've got the DC Trinity. We got Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. On the interior page here, we got Red Hood, which was a part of the Unkillables crew. We got this beautiful image from Dead Planet on the main hardcover or art board. Or hardcover board? What do you call that? Got this cool DCeased Wonder Woman there. And let's take a look at the full dust jacket real quick. So, yeah, the beginning of the end. Very great stuff. This is a great design. What's funny about DCeased kind of leans horror. It's a zombie book. I can deal with zombie books even though I'm not a big horror fan. But then I'm never prepared for all the horror movie homage variants and stuff like that always come with these horror-leaning books. But anyway, here on the artboard, you've got the cover to DCeased Dead Planet #1. I love this cover. That's David Finch, who is now doing the Walking Dead Deluxe cover. So this looks like the Walking Dead Deluxe. These zombies are very similar looking. On the back of the hardcover art, we got the cover to DCeased Unkillables #1. So like I said, we've got a bunch of DC villains. We got Bane and Cheetah and Captain Cold and Deathstroke and is that Lady Shiva and Deadshot, all sorts of people. Like I said, DC villains trying to survive during this zombie apocalypse. But now let's get into the omnibus. Let's start this flip through. Tom Taylor is the writer of this entire saga, and we got a ton of artists. Main artists being Trevor Hairsine, but we got people including Laura Braga, Danielle Dinaculo, James Harron, Andy Lanning, Dustin Nguyen, Derek Robertson, John Samariva. Lots and lots of artists there. So let's continue looking at DC. So we got our table of contents. Like I said, I love that this is broken down into all the different series. Like I said before, we had DCeased, Unkillables, and Hope at World's End that all kind of take place at the same time. And then we've got Dead Planet, which is a sequel, and then War of the Undead Gods, which is the final in the trilogy. We've got an introduction by Tom Taylor. What's funny is he starts out by saying he's not a big horror fan. Same, Tom Taylor. Same. And we get right into it. And so, mild spoilers for DCeased, but basically what happens, like I said, is there's this virus. There's the original cover by Francesco Mathina. But there's this virus going around that basically turns everybody into zombies. And Darkseid is the cause of it. And as soon as they go on this mission and like you see these zombies, it gets dialed up to 11 real quick. Cyborg comes around, and then all of a sudden we got like a bunch of people. Everybody is affected, and no one is safe. I read this first issue, and when Batman got turned to a zombie, I was like, yo, usually Batman's the one that saves the day. He's a zombie. Anybody can turn. And that is exactly what happens in the pages of this series. It's just people trying to run from zombies, people trying to confront zombies, people trying to keep very important people from getting turned. Like, what were to happen if, like, Flash, for example, were a zombie? If Hal Jordan becomes a zombie, like, these people with these incredible superhuman abilities, right? Like, they become zombies, the world is going to end. And we've gotten to the point already in this series where, like, I kind of want to stop flipping through. So I'm just going to kind of stick or flip in between series real quick. So we've got DCeased. This is DCeased, A Good Way to Die, Good Day to Die, which kind of opened up some more characters being shown in the series. We've got Mr. Terrific making appearances, Constantine making appearances, Booster Gold, of course. And we're still in the middle of DCeased. So DCeased ran 6 issues plus that Good Day to Die special. And then we've got Unkillables. Unkillables starts like right about here. And like I said, this is going back to day one and telling us what happened with a bunch of different like DC villains and anti-heroes. We got Deathstroke and Deadshot and Harley and all these other people. It's like, what did they do when this virus struck? So that was a great 6-issue or 3-issue series, pretty short series, but love that. You can see the varying artists on that. It's not the same artist. It's not Trevor Hairsine who does the original DCeased. But don't worry. If you're a Hairsine fan, he will be right back soon. After this is DCeased Hope at World's End. And like I said, it's kind of like gives you a bunch of short pictures. These were digital first chapters. And I feel like there's times where like you can tell there's a digital first book because it's just like weirdly panoramic at times. This, I think, does a good job of still being formatted okay for the page, but you can still kind of see it in the panel layouts, like how these individual chapters were meant to show up on computer screens before they were meant to show up in print. But it gets better toward the end of it, quite honestly. But I like this because, like I said, this is all going down at the same time as the regular DCeased book, and it's just opening up what this world is and opening up the stakes and just kind of widening the aperture, if you will. So after Hope at World's End, those were 15 digital chapters, but it's about 180 pages for Hope at World's End. So similar to like a regular 6-issue miniseries. What's cool about it is each chapter is done. There's a pretty rotating cast of artists on all these digital chapters. So you get varying art styles. Like that's John Samariva, who worked with Tom Taylor on this book called Neverlanders that I absolutely love. It's like an interesting take on Peter Pan. But anyway, I like that we get these varying art styles and all these different collaborators before we jump back into like the seriousness of what this world is going to be with DCeased Dead Planet issue number 1. And as you can see, we've got, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, but we also get Constantine and Swamp Thing in DCeased Dead Planet. And it really does open up like who the Justice League Dark are to this storyline. And so I like that. We get Zatanna and all sorts of people making appearances as we're trying to be careful of who gets turned into zombies and who doesn't. Look, Trigon, Zatanna, like I said, and then the demon. So lots of that. Justice League Dark shows up in Dead Planet. And I'm going to skip ahead quite a bit because once again, I don't want to spoil this series for you. This is one of those things, it's an Elseworld. So every detail that you see in this book is a new detail, which makes it really difficult to do something like this. But you got to see, like, because Trevor Hairsine is like at such great art in this series all throughout. And this series takes place over like a 5-year period of time, like in real time. So the art just gets better and better as it goes on. And that is the DCeased Omnibus. Now let's flip to some extras so I can avoid spoiling things for you. And there are quite a few extras. Like, sheesh. The extras start right here. And we've basically got like a huge variant cover gallery. Like I said, with these horror-inspired books, you often get like different homage variants and stuff like that. So we've got a horror movie variant by Yasmin Putri right here. So we got a whole series of horror movie variants. And you'll probably know some of these better than I do. I recognized it. We got A Good Day to Die, that special issue in Hyuk Lee. We got store exclusives. All sorts of stuff in here. Oh, that is cool. John Jang. But yeah, what I like about this is like it's the DC universe. So like while these variant covers can get like kind of dark and scary, the book itself, which you saw the art for the book on the interior, it never gets like to the levels of like gore and just like straight up horror that you might see in other genre books. That's kind of what I like about superhero comics in general. Superheroes are kind of like genre fiction light in a way where you'll get a part of it, but it won't go all in all the time. I love this cover. This is a nice homage to the first appearance of Harley Quinn right there in the Batman Adventures. They even put that Batman. That's really nice. I like that. So we are nowhere near the end of this variant cover gallery, by the way. And so since we're doing that, I'm going to kind of stop this real quick and talk about reasons that you may or may not want to upgrade. Now, I will say, from the overall book design perspective, I really, really like this. I love the way the title is laid out on the side. I love the consistency of these spines. When you get, when you start lining up these hardcovers like this, they look just really, really good on the shelves together. And that's cool. I like the compact form factor. This was a book that I actually took with me. I used to like keep hardcovers in my backpack all the time. And I love having like the portability. Another difference between these and the omnibus, like you saw, is these have matte pages where the omnibus has like glossy pages. It's not that different, but it is a different feel. So a different feel and a different look that I think works well here, where we get like just that sort of straight up glossy paper that you're used to on an omnibus for this one. But a pretty big reason to upgrade, though, is that you don't get nearly the amount of extras in these standard hardcovers as you do. Well, maybe you do. Hold on. It's been a little bit of time. But we do have some extras. We do have like a bit of a variant cover gallery in here. But I don't think we get as many as we do in the omnibus. But then again, we're talking about 5 books worth of extras. So let's look at the Unkillables volume, for example. All right, so we get the Matina variants, we get the horror variants, some promotional art. Okay, so you actually do get a pretty fair amount of extras in these as well. I didn't remember all the extras that you got in these standard hardcovers, but I still think you get more of the covers in here. Oh, I remember this poly bag variant. I had one of those. They called it the body bag edition. So we got the variant cover gallery. Let's see if we get more of those. Yeah. Cover ink pages, original pitch, the series outlined by Tom Taylor, process pages, a Trevor hairsine sketchbook. So yeah, there are some things that you don't get in the hardcover that you get in the omnibus. So that's good to see that you get some extras. But I don't know whether or not you should upgrade. I'll tell you why I decided to upgrade, though. Because if I'm being completely honest, if I did not have an affiliate relationship with Panelbound Comics, which is where you can purchase this book, then I might not have upgraded my book. But the biggest draw for me to this was having this art oversized. Like seeing this art a little bit bigger is definitely a dope move. But I didn't necessarily want to part with these cool spines just for bigger art. But the selling point for me was this. Turning all of this width into just this, we go from 5 fingers to 3 fingers, which, doesn't sound like much, but when you're someone like me who is limited on shelf space, being able to turn this into this means there's another book that fits on the shelf that did not fit before. So I get oversized artwork. I get a little bit more extras. I do sacrifice the cool spine design. I do risk scaring my kid with this image of the Joker or Batman on the spine, but I save some shelf space. And so that is ultimately why I decided to upgrade. Now, like I said, if you're looking for, you can still find these hardcovers at panelboundcomics.com. You can buy the omnibus at panelboundcomics.com. And I am going to unload my DCeased collection. This one is just too special to me. I'm not willing to part with it. But what I will do is give you a steep discount on all of these. These books each had a cover price of $30. I will get rid of this entire set, these 4 hardcovers, for $58 shipped. Does that sound too bad of a price? Let's call it $55. $55. You'll get all of these, and all you got to do is get yourself a copy of the DCeased Volume 1 hardcover, which is still in print. And you'll have a full set of DCeased if you like the standard size, if that works better for your form factor. And it'll save you some money over buying this. But that's it for me. I've been talking way too long. I upgraded. I think you're fine not upgrading if you don't prefer oversized artwork, but this video is too long. So stay tuned until the next one. Until then, stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace.